From grandpa's hand-me-downs to pawn shop specials, everyone remembers their first. First firearm, that is. I'm joined by Steve and SDI's own Bart Miller, our firearm specialist with over 30 years of gunsmithing experience, as we swap stories, break down the top responses from our social posts, and get into what makes that first gun unforgettable. For better or for worse, on this episode of The Gun Rack. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of The Gun Rack, SDI's podcast about the firearms industry and everything guns. I'm Christian Sakara, your host with SDI, event coordinator here, and I am joined today by my co-host Steve Ross, director of marketing. How's it going today, Steve?
Hey, doing good, Christian. Good to see you again.
Yeah. So how's the week been?
Man, killing it. Summer is from full swing. Been out in the pool, going out to the gun range. Bought a couple new guns last week. I'll have to share those with you later. But overall, pretty good.
Well, that might go with what we're talking about today, because our topic today is your first firearm. And to help us talk about that, we have a very, very special guest today. He's one of my favorite people that work here at SDI, aside from you, Steve, of course. Firearms specialist Bart Miller. How's it going, Bart?
Good, Christian. How are you?
I'm good. Is that your title? What's your title?
Yeah, I'm the firearm specialist. Yep.
Okay. Well,
that like undersells what you do here at SDI, Bart. You're way more than just a firearm specialist, which is a great title, by the way, but you do way more than that.
Well, I contribute where I can, and I tell you what, a lot of great folks doing a lot of work creating the curriculum and the classes, and I'm very impressed. I haven't been here for more than, I guess, maybe 4 months, and I will have to tell you, it's a lot of passionate people all working together to make it the best that it can be.
Yep. So as Christian mentioned, we reached out to our SDI community and we asked, what was your first firearm? And the answers came flooding in. That's going to be our topic for today. But before we get to it, can you share a bit more about what all you do here at SDI and your background?
You bet. So what I do is I go through and critique classes or create content, create a course from start to finish and put it in a way that we can add little tips and tricks over the things that I've learned over the years, the little things that you don't find in a textbook, but this is what it is in real life. This is what it's like to use this tool or use this technique. And probably more important than anything else, what not to do. Don't do this. We look for time-saving ways of doing things. They're not shortcuts. They're just more efficient ways of doing them. So it's something that every gunsmith needs to be efficient as well as good to be able to make a living at it. So that's some of the things we're trying to make sure we add into the curriculum where it's appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. How long have you been gunsmithing?
This will be my 41st year. So I'm a slow learner.
31st. And there's still more to learn, right?
There is.
What was your most egregious what not to do example that just jumps out in your head?
Oh boy. I would have to say, behind not following safety procedures, not that I've ever done anything like that, probably working with stock finishes and things of that nature. The finish tells you what to do more than you tell it what to do.
Okay, so you have to explain on that for us non-gunsmithing people.
You apply some finish and you're like, hey, I'm going to put 5 coats of finish on today. And the finish needs 24 hours to dry. But maybe the next day it's rainy and it's humid. Well, now you've got a day and a half or 2 days. There's a lot of the that's where the craft part comes in. The things that you can't just buy and bolt on, the things you have to create, or the things that you interact and you work with. That's really where the art or the craft of gunsmithing comes into play more than anything.
All right. That makes total sense. And probably not something everyone factors into how long a job might take.
Yeah, exactly. And learning how to make sure you don't paint yourself into a corner time frame wise. This is a process, and making sure that you are disciplined in the business approach, which there again, you've asked earlier, what do I contribute to? This is the business side of gunsmithing, and that's part of what we try to impress upon the students and things of that nature. There are time frames, there's customers, there's the art, that type of thing.
Yep, that's a common thing we hear from a lot of our gunsmith friends is don't bite off more than you can chew. And that kind of leads into our gun topic today, because I'm sure you've seen a lot of these guns that made it on our list of what was the first gun you owned. So on this list, we have everything from grandpa's treasured heirlooms that have been passed down to someone, I think they mentioned their first gun was a High Point. I think some of those were blocked out. So I'm sure there's probably some guns on this list. And if they come up, the guns you worked on, we would love to hear some stories of what you may have encountered along the way.
You mean as far as people in their first gun and they bring them in? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, maybe it's their first gun. Maybe you're having to advise them on what gun to buy for their first time. Or maybe it's a gun they inherited or found somewhere at the bottom of a lake, and they brought it to you to help them fix it and get it back to working order.
Oh boy, I tell you what, there's been so many stories, and I think this is probably a good place to put this out there. Doing restoration work on guns that have sentimental value, or just work on guns that have sentimental value, is so valuable as a gunsmith. And the reason is the first thing to realize is they're showing an awful lot of faith in handing you their prized possession. It is irreplaceable to them. The story or the history, as you mentioned before, about it being handed down, how do you replace that? And it needs to be treated as such, but you need to be able to convey that to the customer. I'm going to treat this with TLC. This is what you can expect as a finished product. A lot of 22s and a lot of 410s come in as first guns.
Yeah. Well, let's take a step back. Let's talk about the post. So this post came out on Facebook, on socials, a few weeks back, maybe like 5-6 weeks ago. Steve, you think that's about right?
Yeah, it's been about a month.
Yeah, it's and so it just said, "What was your first firearm?" And it has 936 comments. So it was really something that sparked interest.
That's a good sample size, I think. And I mean, that makes up like our Facebook page followers, but that's a lot of students, instructors, alumni, people that are tied into the industry partner wise. So I think it's a good gun focused audience we have there to give us some feedback on what was your first firearm.
Yeah. And so, I'm seeing a lot of 22s, like I said, 410s. And there's a bunch of BB guns. Do we count those? I mean, that's, yeah, that was my first gun, was a BB gun. So, and that was a couple years ago.
Bart, advice, BB gun, or just go right into getting someone a real firearm for their first gun?
So my first gun, not firearm, but gun was a BB gun. Yes, the Red Ryder BB gun. And yes, I looked like Ralphie from A Christmas Story when I got it.
I can see that.
But yeah, exactly. When my two oldest boys, when they were asking about guns and different things, and they asked when they could have one, I said, well, you need to learn the safety rules and things first.
Very important.
You need to understand that what you do here has an effect down there. But one of the other things I had was a little bit of the sword and the stone technique. If you can cock it by yourself, those things are hard to cock when you're 6 years old. You have to pass that test, and then all the safety stuff. And that bought me another year. But then if they can go through and handle a BB gun well and that type of thing, then it's kind of a rite of passage, and they've earned the right to show the responsibility and take care of the gun, take care of what you're shooting at, what's behind it, and learn all those skills.
Yeah. And I tell you, when I've shot with new shooters, whether they're kids or adults, in addition to your standard safety rules, I have one extra rule I always do with new shooters. I always only put one round in the gun, at least to engage their comfort level. Especially I do it in revolvers. But I always like to just put one in there. And I know not everyone does that. I know some would, load them up, let them shoot, let them have fun. I want to have fun, but I want to gauge how ready you are, and not start spraying away or have a kickback or something weird and shoot again by accident.
It sure made me want to make sure that I placed that first shot well, because that's how I grew up as well. So I think that's pretty smart.
What was your first shooting experience like?
So other than BB gun, I bought a used Winchester 22, an old 69A, and little did I realize how much better the gun can really shoot better than an 8-year-old. But as the years would go by, and then you go out, and everybody has that moment that they remember their first gun, the first time shooting. I'm independent, and then unbeknownst to me, I'm learning about external ballistics when I'm shooting Green Army men, or a pop can, or whatever the case may be, or learning how to dope the wind. I'm shooting at that bird; it's 20 yards away. Well, you start to learn. Oh, okay. So there's so much learning going on while you're having fun, you hardly even notice.
Steve, same for
My
you?
first shooting experience, I tell you, growing up, my dad was a big hunter. He's the one that introduced it to me, but it wasn't guns. He was always into bow hunting and archery. So for most of my childhood, I was training with bow and arrow. It probably wasn't until I was a teenager that I started getting into firearms. And I think it was going out with some of my older brother's friends, and they took me out to skeet shooting. So getting to shoot some 12 gauge shotguns at some clays was my first experience. And getting to watch the older boys, and getting knocked in my ass probably for getting pushed back or something with a firearm, not with a shotgun, not expecting it. And I probably missed the whole bunch.
Already
the first time.
6'2".
Yeah, I was still 300 pounds, 6'3", but
yeah. Cool.
But that did motivate me to go buy my first firearm. I went and bought from a pawn shop. I think it was about $200, the cheapest Remington 870 Express I could find. It's still here. I've killed a lot of turkeys with it. It works well. It's one of the guns I can toss in the back of the truck. I can drag it through the woods. It gets beat up. It still cycles. I give it a good cleaning every now and then. But it's been a bit dependable firearm.
Bart, so how many sons do you have? Or children?
So I have two.
Two. Oh, and when did you start introducing them to shooting? Like, how old? Was there a scenario?
6 years old, I brought them with me to watch shooting. This is what we do. This is the procedure. You're here to watch today, that type of thing. Just real short session. And then I think probably, I was thinking about that this morning. I think eight. But we base it a lot on maturity and familiarity, that confidence piece. So 8 by 10, generally speaking, with a lot of the kids that I've worked with, trying to teach them about guns and things of that nature, they're aware of muzzle discipline and that type of thing, trigger discipline, that kind of thing.
And your kids, given your background and your work history, they probably grew up used to having firearms in the house and knowing to respect them, right? Like probably more than the average kid might.
You bring up a great point. I think familiarity is, you take the mystery out of it, and it's just another tool, and this is how you use this tool properly. And then I did the normal things, why all the guns are all in one room and it's locked and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think if you take the mystery out, it's just another machine that you have to use really, really carefully.
Yeah, and that makes me think of like my house. I have kids in the house too. My guns are all locked away in safes. Every gun is locked away. Where at Christian, you have no kids in the house. You just got a wall of guns, and I'm jealous all the time. Like I just want a wall of guns too.
Yeah, no, it is pretty bothersome when the nephew has to come and visit, and I have to like make sure this door's locked, that door's locked, all the house guns are put away. It's like, oh, so, but it is nice. It is nice just being able to have everything here, and available. But
yeah, all right. Should we kind of get into knocking out a few of the answers of putting the question out there of what were some of the answers we saw of first guns?
Yeah,
I have the list. So if you don't have it ready,
well, I just have the Facebook post up. What sticks out to you? Like what are some of the stats? Yeah.
All right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I ran all the answers through ChatGPT. I said, give me the top 10 most common answers we saw. Should I start with number 1 or number 10? What do you guys want to hear? 10? Do a countdown?
Bart, what do you think?
10.
All right. Number
Save
10.
dessert.
Number 10, most popular, most responded first gun was surprisingly enough a High Point 40 cal.
That's crazy.
What
What do you think that person? Who do you think that person is? What's that? What is that person? Their first gun is a High Point.
Right. So our
40.
question wasn't what was your first gun as a kid? It was just what was your first firearm. So for probably many adults, maybe you're looking for something affordable. I don't know about reliable, but if you're looking for something cheap, probably a High Point is on that list.
Yeah. Bart, would you agree?
It would fall into the category of affordable and
Bart, are you like a dentist like that gives out candy for people to have bad teeth? Like, no, you should go buy the cheaper guns that have it. I'm not saying High Point is. I know they have sometimes a reputation like that, but not picking them out. But do you ever feel that way? Like, oh, like you like it when someone buys a gun that has a lot of issues, or where you see those gun sales?
Well, I have a lot of people ask for advice, and I'll say, well, I'm not going to speak to their quality, but they're one of the few companies. I'm not talking about High Point necessarily, but there are companies that if you don't call them with a warranty problem, they call you. It's like, it's working. You know what I mean?
What's number? What's number 9?
Number 9, which I thought this would actually be higher, was a Savage 22.
Isn't that
all right?
Isn't that one of the first guns you shot when you were a kid? I think you mentioned to me before.
I have this is my other first gun. This was my first inherited gun, not the one that I bought.
Okay.
This was I thought it was a Savage, but I just remember I pulled it out of the safe. It was a Remington 597 Magnum, model 597. I thought it was a Savage. All right, number 8, Colt 1911. Number 7, Mossberg 500. Number 6, a Glock 17. Number 5, a Remington 870. Number 4, a Ruger 1022. All right, here's top 3. Number 3, a Bushmaster XM15. So AR-15, right? Then we had a Marlin Model 60, and then a Marlin 22 as the number 1 answer.
Interesting.
What do you take from that, Bart?
Well, the 22s are probably more reflective of the people that got them maybe when they were younger, and the ones that are of a bigger, like the AR, that may be somebody who, to Steve's point earlier, didn't grow up around guns. They didn't grow up on the sticks like I did, and maybe they got old enough in an interest that wasn't culturally okay until they got to the point where they could buy a long gun. So a lot of people are that way. And that's a really good example of a first high-powered rifle, if you will, on an AR platform. It's a very common choice. So yeah, I can see that. I'm surprised about the 1022.
You think with like the 1022 people, I mean, those are also, I know the price has gone up, but they're relatively pretty affordable guns. Reliable, ammo's pretty cheap. I like about it, I think they're easy to mod. Nowadays, there's a lot of additions you can add to those guns, and a lot of different variations to make them pretty cool, whether it's capacity, triggers, things like that. You can do a lot of cool things to trick them out.
Yeah. Talk about a number of accessories that are out there. You're exactly right. It's, pages and pages. And the other piece, believe it or not, that I hear from folks when they come in, because I'll ask them, why did you buy this one rather than like an AR in a 22? And he goes, this doesn't look scary and it doesn't scare the other person in the house, or, it doesn't draw attention. So anyway, that's one factor.
Let's talk about a reason for purchasing your first gun. Because I know I didn't buy my first gun until 2011 when I moved to Phoenix. I was a full adult, like a full, 4'2".
Share your motivations for why. Share your motivations why you bought your first gun, Christian.
I'm an adult. I moved from Kansas City, Missouri, to Phoenix. In Kansas, or in Missouri, in Kansas City, I lived in the suburbs. Kind of nice. I grew up with a single Filipino mom, so guns really weren't a huge thing. My mom basically threw her slippers at me, and that was the thing. But when I moved here, didn't live in the best area. A couple shootings at the gas station we went to. There was a couple random ones, and so I purchased a firearm. It was actually a Springfield Hellcat because of my petite frame. I knew that you don't want to show it off, so I needed a subcompact to not show, and I have a big gut as well, so that played into it.
Bart, do you remember your motivations for your first firearm purchase?
Well, I can look back and realize more of what it is, but are we not hunter-gatherers at heart? I wanted to go out and take a rabbit or a squirrel and bring it home and that type of thing. And, whether that be a sparrow or bullfrogs out in the ponds, boy, that's a challenge, that type of thing. But it's an interesting experience the first time that you take game. I think if you're taught with a bit of a reverence of what you're doing, then that puts a different light on it. Part of the other reason for me is I just love the mechanics. How does this work? And imagine that. It carried me through maybe a few years afterwards, but just the curiosity factor. And then as the years went by, the historical factor. I just love the history and the design and such. So those are some of the reasons why it kind of snowballed into what it is now.
Yeah. And my motivation was fitting in. Like I wanted it for recreation to go hang out with my older friends, right? So I think probably between the three of us, that's probably a good sample of probably the top three motivations for why someone's buying their first firearms: self-protection, hunting, and recreation. I think that makes sense. Like, is there any maybe other outlier categories of reasons someone might buy their first gun? If you have something different, leave it in a comment. But I think that would probably be the top three.
Yeah, self-defense, living out in the sticks, hunting, and fitting in with your friends. Yeah, I think that covers a lot of ground.
Now, one thing that stuck out with me that you had mentioned at the beginning was kind of that sentimental value, inherited weight versus, purchasing one. What really sticks out in your mind when it comes to shooting an inherited firearm as opposed to shooting your brand new first firearm that you picked out yourself?
As far as me personally, or for a customer? I'm sorry.
Both, either.
So the ones that are handed down, I try to leave just as they are, even if they're a little bit in the rough shape, because every mark is a story. Every ding in the stock is a hunt, that type of thing. It's a memory in physical form. It brings back all those things. I can literally look at a gun and just like we all can, we look at something and all of a sudden those memories come back. As far as working with customers, you bring up a great question, by the way. As far as customers go, they'll oftentimes bring them in and say, hey, I want this completely restored. Well, the first thing is does it need to be restored or does it need a resurrection? Are you going to shoot this or are you going to hang it on the wall? Let's evaluate it mechanically to make sure that it's going to be usable when you're done. The next thing is say, well, I can restore the whole thing and it'll look fantastic, just like every other one that's out there. That's the same make and model. It'll be just the same. Let me bring its condition up, but leave a little bit of the character in it. I call that an aged restoration. 90% of everybody I've ever introduced that to has taken me up on, let's do an aged restoration. Let's leave some character in the gun so I can still tell that it's mine and I can still tell that was a story and they can pass that along. And that's part of what you pass along too, is then they have it and they maybe for themselves, but most of the time they get it restored because it's theirs, because they're going to pass it on. So there's different levels that you can approach that process with.
And I know you had mentioned to me before that, some folks will spend way more than the actual firearm is worth because of that sentimental value that it ties down to.
Yeah, that's a real interesting conversation, because we tell them sometimes they'll be stuck between, is it worth it from a monetary standpoint or is it worth it from a sentimental standpoint? I answer it this way. I can tell you what the market value is, but only you can tell me the sentimental value. But look at what would a replacement cost? And then there's no story. There's no history. What would you do with it anyway? This is literally an heirloom type of process, but you have to start it off. You're the beginning of handing that down and passing that along, those traditions and things. Yeah.
What do you think is more important in an heirloom gun? The memories that it holds, or the rarity or the value of the firearm? What do you see more of?
You bet. The sentimental, rarely, if they've made the effort and the conscious decision that I want to have it done, rarely do they leave with it. They almost always leave it to be done, because then they have a firm idea of exactly what they're going to get when they get it back. I get the best of both worlds, better condition, same gun, still have the history. So that whole memory piece, it's literally irreplaceable. It's like an old photo. Like, people will talk about, if they have a fire in their house, what are the things you should grab? Photo albums, right? Take the things that you can't replace. Not really, not history. And some of the restorations that I have done have gone through floods or fires, just not been bad enough. And then we bring them back to serviceable condition. And then this survived the flood, this survived the fire, whatever.
Yeah,
But
that was gonna be my follow-up question, is when someone brings in a gun that's just, man, almost beyond repair, where they take it to you to go get it fixed back up. It's that heirloom gun. It was hand down from their grandfather. Maybe it was damaged. Do you feel like a lot of times you're seeing more that they want it restored back to working order and they want to go back out and use it again? Or is it going back above the mantle and they just want to save that piece of history, never to be shot again?
Probably great. You bet. 90% are, I'd like to be able to shoot it. And the phrase is, I want to be able to shoot it at least once. I said, well, for me to tell you can shoot it once, I've got to make sure you can shoot it 1,000 times. So we do a mechanical evaluation first. If it's a wall hanger, we always then go through and make them into a non-firing gun so that there's no misconception. We pull the firing pins out, we make it non-fireable, so somebody else doesn't get a crazy idea, to go through, hey, I wonder if this is a 12 gauge. Don't put a live round in there. But 90% want to be able to shoot it. But a lot of folks, especially if it's pre-1900, man, they just want something to go up on the wall. They just want something to go up on the wall.
Yep.
So at the risk of you both bursting into tears, let me ask this question. Do you guys have sentimental stories about inherited guns that either Bart, maybe it's one that you gave to one of your sons, or, just one that you've inherited, and Steve, same?
Yeah, go ahead, Bart.
Sure. The one that probably holds the most sentimental value to me is one that I had as a youngster. I fixed it up as I got older and learned how to do some of these things, and then passed it on to one of my sons, who it looks like they'll be having a child, and being able to pass that on, that type of thing. So yeah, that's definitely, it's cool, because that's all that you want when you're younger. And then as you get older, that's all I want is to give it away, give it a home, pass on that history. It's kind of that evolution. And that comes with a lot of heart and a lot of meaning behind it. So that's mine.
And congrats.
Oh,
So,
Yeah,
Steve, how about
on
you?
my side, probably sad to say, I don't really have that much like sentimental stories, memories tied to those firearms as a kid. Cause like I said, my dad was a bow hunter, so he wasn't really into shooting firearms. So I don't have those like memories of like, man, this is the gun I was using in a tree stand where I shot my first deer when I was 8 years old, type of thing. The guns that I had that I've inherited were probably either his that he just bought, like he thought they were interesting guns, maybe for a historical reason. And then he would just put them in the gun safe. And then he's given me some of those that I think are just interesting stories. They're cool guns. They have a neat background to them. And I would never get rid of them, just because, one, they were given to me, and two, I'm lucky enough, like, I don't have a reason to get rid of any firearms. Like, I don't want to go sell these guns to go pay a bill or something like that. So I'll never get rid of them. But I think that is a question I would probably lead up for you, Christian, is next is, sometimes your first gun isn't a choice. Maybe it is that inherited gun. So if you are a gun person and you're getting ready, you know, you're going to give your guns away to your children. Does that influence the gun decisions purchases you're making now? Are you buying guns today?
That's a horrible question for me because I have no
Okay.
kids.
You
So
think about it as someone else who has kids, or Bart, maybe that's a good question for you. Are
yeah,
you buying guns
yeah.
now with the thought of, I'm going to give this to my children, or maybe their grandchildren, my grandchildren will have it one day, and I'm buying this gun for a specific reason?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I have one that's a Remington 22 smoothbore, and you shoot little 22 shot cartridges. And that's one where, you know, it's good for pest control, but it's also a good one to go out and learn the basics of shotgunning, not just rifle shooting, that type of thing. Few and far between, unless we kind of talk about it with the kids and stuff like that. That's what you're interested in or whatever. But there are a few, especially when they're younger, to get them into it, because once they get into it, all you have to do is prime the pump usually, and they take off from there.
Well, we saw a lot of shotguns on the list, you know, from 410s, other single shot shotguns. You showed me something that was very interesting, and it's a 9mm shotgun.
It's a 9mm shotgun.
Let's show it off. Talk to us about it. I am very curious.
How about that? Okay, so this is another name for the cartridge is a 9mm Flowbert, but 9mm shotgun. It's a rimless shot cartridge. It's all brass. You can still buy the ammo. It's actually not very expensive. This is a Winchester Model 36. It is the dimensions of a Red Ryder BB gun. And it's built on, and you can see the actions open here, it's built on a 22 action, okay? What I got this is one that I got into the shop, and it was, I had to pound it open. Rusty stock was broken 3 places, so I fixed the stock, refinished it. As a gunsmith, you'll learn to do things like, this end piece here is an extension. Okay, this is got some steel and silver soldered it on, and this is a choke I put in here. Basically, this was made for an event that I created out here in Denver. It's called the Generation Shoot. It's meant to introduce people into shooting, youngsters, you know, little boys, little girls, that how do I get familiar with shooting in a safe environment? The big thing is it weighs about 2.5 pounds.
Wow, nice.
So one of the main limiting factors for an appropriate gun for a youngster isn't the recoil, it's the weight. They don't have the upper body strength. So this turned out to be it was an event with multiple pieces attached to it. Let's just say at the end of the day, despite the fact there was people with $20, $30, $40, $50,000 Krieghoffs and Protzies and stuff, everybody wanted to shoot the 9mm shotgun. And if you're really careful, you can actually break a bird at about 15 yards. That's about the limit. About 10 is about customary. We would hang the little clay birds and they would shoot them. But introducing them the right way. Can I handle it? Are they safe? Having somebody right there with supervision. But that's just one of the little things that they were made in the 1920s as a garden gun. I just repurposed it for.
Is the ammo for that hard to find?
It is not. You can just, Fiocchi makes it.
Was it a bolt action?
50 rounds for $30. Yeah, a little bolt action. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll hold it a little
So my
closer.
question is, like, what of the design or the mechanics actually makes that considered a shotgun? Is it the smooth bore?
There's no rifling in the bore.
Yeah.
Yep. There's no rifling in it. So you can't from that angle, but you can see at least the opening of the chamber. It looks for all the world like a 38 special shot cartridge. Is what it looks like, but it's all brass and it's a rimfire. But yep. Yeah, it'll shoot with that choke on there, it'll shoot about a soccer ball size pattern at 10 yards. And that's just about the time it runs out of steam.
So your 9mm ammo for that is like, when I'm thinking of a shotgun with a pattern, it's a bunch of BBs in there.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. It's like we explained to kids when we're at the range, we pick up a handful of pebbles and we throw it and say, well, that's what a shotgun does, only they're really tiny little rocks. And it throws it out the end of the barrel. And that's what we do, is we're throwing that out there. They get that. That's something they can see, and that's tangible.
Little baby buckshot.
You're blowing Steve's mind. He wants one for his kids. So,
that could be arranged.
There you go.
Yep. Yeah. My oldest one is, I have
you got a windmill right next to you?
I have an old, I think it's around that same time period, like late 1920s, Marlin 410 lever action shotgun. And that one, they called it the banker shotgun, not because it was really popular amongst bankers, but because I think Marlin, when they were selling that gun, they gave it away to anyone that would buy Marlin stock. And that was mostly like bankers that were buying it. So they would get that gun. So a lot of them are in good condition still.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a pretty rare gun. They don't make too many of those.
All right.
Can I have it?
On the subject of shotguns, what do you recommend for a first time shotgun owner? You know, America, popular shotgun owner country. That gun came up on our list a couple of times. So whether it's an 870 or a Mossberg 500, what do you recommend for a good first shotgun? Should someone go 10 gauge, 12 gauge, 410, 9mm shotgun if they can find one? Do you want a over under? Do you want a pump shotgun? Do you want a break? What do you want to do?
Well, at least you asked me a question where there's only one answer. I'm just kidding.
Yes. Yeah. You can decide for everybody. This is the one answer, right?
Yeah. The one, no matter your situation and reasoning.
Get that all the time. So it depends on the safety factor first, the size factor first. Can they handle, not the size of the person necessarily, but are they 6? Are they 8? Are they 10? Are they 12? What can they handle? In general terms, break opens make great guns for a couple of reasons. The first one is I can kick it open and you can tell them that action needs to stay open no matter where you are until I tell you to close it. There's a safety factor that you can put in there. They have to close it, pull back the hammer. If they're not old enough to pull back the hammer, that might be time to question, is it the right gun? So if it's teaching them the skills, the principles, the safety, the muzzle discipline, I would say a break open shotgun. If you have a teenager who's gone through that step, boy, it's hard to overlook Mossberg 500 or whatever series you have, 835, whatever, or Remington 870. These are the standards in the industry, and for good reason. And you can still handle one round at a time until they can handle 2 rounds at a time. Again, it all depends on, there's maturity and there's responsibility, and they're not always hand in hand. They have to realize what's going to happen if I pull that trigger and it's not pointed in the right direction. Do they have that right mindset when they go into it? So that plays into the decision-making process.
Any particular gauge?
That is a great question. If it's a young lady, a 20 gauge, because the overall weight of the gun is lighter without the balance changing, and that's fairly important. 410s are an expert's gun. It's an expert's gauge. If you see somebody shooting a 410 out on the trap range or the sporting clays range, that's an expert, because it's hard to really kill anything with it or break anything with it. It's just a lot less shot. The reason they use them for use is the sizes of the guns are smaller. They come in a lot of cheap break opens and things like that. If they're going to be just using it for sport and casual and they're slider built, 20 gauge. 12 gauge if they're going to go hunting or sporting clays shooting. I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Mossberg has the advantage is they can shoot those little mini shells. And as much grief as mini shells get, I will tell you, they are so much fun to shoot. And you can put like 8,000 of them in your shotgun. But those are good for low recoil situations. Okay. Not all Mossbergs. Make sure you check with your vendor, make sure it has the adapter. But those little mini shells they are so much fun to shoot, and they're really light in recoil on a heavy gun. So that can be enter the equation as well, because it'll shoot the mini shells or a regular shell.
Now that we kind of cleared up some shotgun recommendations as a first gun, going back to our list of most popular, recommendations for first firearms to own. Quick kind of fire questions here. Shotgun or 22?
22.
22. All right. Open it back up. Pistol or rifle for first firearm?
Rifle.
Rifle. And if it's a rifle, do you like a bolt action? Do you like, something with a magazine, semi-automatic, full automatic? What do you recommend?
Bolt action.
All right. Christian, I miss any other options?
No, I guess that's good.
When,
I was going to ask.
I was just going to say, when or where or would an AR-15 fit in as someone's first firearm? I mean, it's the most popular firearm in America. It's got to be someone's first gun. When is an AR-15 a good choice for a first firearm?
When they have at least gone through and understand muzzle discipline, had somebody mentoring them and starting them off 1 round in a magazine, run through the cycle, 2 rounds in the magazine, do that until you're proficient, that type of thing. It's what I have seen, and I've seen plenty of people show up at the range with that exact scenario. So that's you're hit the nail on the head. The problem is in 10 minutes, they're having so much fun, they start to get careless. It still needs to be focused fun, not just fun. My opinion.
Yeah, we've all seen the videos at the gun range from the security cameras of people just being ridiculous, not knowing basic gun safety rules. And sometimes it is with an AR-15, they get excited, and someone has to come check them and remind them, like, nope, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to lay that down. Let me teach you something here real quick, or I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
Yes. Yeah. I worked at a range for 10 years, and the easiest way to demonstrate muzzle discipline or the lack thereof is when next time you go to the range, don't look down range. Just look at all the holes right beside you.
Yep.
They're everywhere. It happens all the time. And it happens with people that I know that have, won't get too specific, but let's just say they left the range with more holes than they walked in with, to shattered glass in between the stations, wrong round in the gun, hazardous situation. I had mentioned before, I collect blown up guns that things come in and that type, and it's just fascinating from a mechanical pressure standpoint. The point, going back to what you were just talking about, is it's just a lack of mental discipline. They just need to stay focused.
Yep, being ready.
Yep.
Okay.
Handguns. Your question earlier was when it came to handgun or rifle, and it's for no other reason other than you can change the direction of the rifle of the barrel so quick, or somebody calls your name and you say, "What was that?" and all of a sudden you're sweeping everybody.
Yep. Well, and the reason I asked specifically rifle versus handgun, because kind of like with Christian's story, I think a lot of people that are in that self-protection category, they might rush out and be like, oh, yep, I need to buy a gun. The first one I need to get is something I can carry, in my waistband or my purse or in a bag, conceal it. And their very first firearm is going to be a pistol or revolver, something small. Sometimes they buy something too big, but it's for self-protection. I think that mindset is I need a handgun right away, which, I mean, it's that category is right for a handgun, but maybe you need to work up to it, be more familiar with firearms. Either way, like you said, the training, the readiness, getting prepared, knowing how to use it properly, getting training is going to be the biggest factor.
Well, somebody like Christian has a photographic memory and is responsible. He gets all those safety rules, so he could probably just go buy a handgun to begin with, right?
Buying a Ma Deuce, just blasting that out there. I'm good, If I had a kid, that's what I'm passing down. First gun. So, yeah.
Do it.
So, what's your thoughts on suppressed for a first time shooter? You know, with Hearing Protection Act and all that, you know, suppressors are a big thing. And it's going to be more popular, getting in people's hands. I mean, do you suggest shooting suppressed for a youth that's first starting out?
Okay, so I'll give you a mixed answer because that's convenient for me.
Okay.
The first thing is that you really need to have somebody there that understands um, suppressors, and what I mean by that is how do they attach? Is it attached correctly? For people who haven't been around suppressors, they're astonished of how scorching hot they can get in such a short period of time. And you can't just always take it and put it in your gun case or you melt all the foam. Not that I've ever done anything like that. But so there's just other things you have to account for. If it starts to loosen or starts to droop, what are the bullet holes, that kind of thing? You know, are they keyholing? Is it affecting the point of impact? Those are all signs that the suppressor is coming loose. So it wouldn't be my first preference. So whoever is using a suppressor, I would say try to get a buddy to come along and be your eyes and ears and be your double check to begin with. If you're shooting with a 22, foam earplugs are more than enough. That isn't going to be too much of an annoyance. So although you can, man, I'd have a buddy there. Otherwise, it can get real expensive.
Well, as far as lower recoil, it doesn't spook you. You know, it's not as loud. Do you think those would be a good factor in shooting suppressed for somebody's first gun? You know, assuming you have somebody there watching you, showing you how to do everything, taking you through, making sure you know you don't grip the suppressor like I've seen somebody do at a range day before. So
Yeah. No, absolutely. And especially some people are more. A lot of people think they're recoil sensitive. What they are is they're muzzle blast sensitive. And having, again, worked at a range for 10 years, I can tell you, believe it or not, I don't like loud noises. So I always double up on my ear protection, that type of thing. And for that person, a suppressor, its benefit can't be duplicated. Really, caliber, same everything. Absolutely. The next person who maybe it's on a caliber that won't benefit that much. It may not be top of their list, but yeah, it absolutely is a it satisfies or cures a need out there. So they absolutely have their place.
Yep, I agree. I think if you're going out to buy your first firearm, invest in the training, invest in some accessories. If the training is going to be one-on-one or in a group class, get familiar with your firearm before going out to buy a suppressor. I think you have some better value added options before rushing into a suppressor.
Yeah. And you mentioned something that just sparked a thought, talking about go out, do your research, be familiar. It's really too bad that I hear so many stories of, yeah, I'm scared of guns because when I was 12 years old, they gave me a 10 gauge and they all wanted to sit back and laugh and watch me shoot it. And they're just scared to death of them. Let's get more people into the sport. Let's get more people in and enjoying firearms. And to your point, let's work up to that.
Yeah.
That type of thing. It may be funny, but they're going to carry that with them.
And Bart, have you seen in your 30 plus years working in gun stores as a gunsmith, probably selling guns too, a change in consumer shopping? Like, has it gone from they're coming in asking you for advice on which guns to buy? Or is it more people, they come in knowing what they want to buy now? They have the research done. They've watched a YouTube video. They know exactly what model, what firearm they want to purchase, and they just want you to check them out. What are you seeing more of?
Okay, so great question. So although I worked in the store, I never worked retail, but I worked in a retail place. So a lot of the people that are real tech savvy will come and ask the gunsmiths, which gun would you buy? Because which ones are reliable? Which ones break down? Which ones can you customize, et cetera, et cetera. To answer your question on do they come in educated, Steve, they come in overwhelmed. there's so much information out there. They don't know how to prioritize it. And it's just, they have a bunch of knowledge, but they don't have a lot of wisdom. That's why when they come into the store, especially on a first gun, they'll come in and they'll work with somebody at the counter, or they'll ask me, right? I'm in the shop and I'll come up to the counter and I'll work with them. I always tell them, whatever you do, just go rent a gun and see what it's like to make sure. Can you handle a 45? Or can you handle a 380? Can you handle a 9mm? Or whatever the case may be. But it's sifting through all that information and what is that experience for me? And the best way to do that is to go through and shoot the rental guns.
Okay. Now, follow up, as a gun guy, as our gun guy, what advice would you give to someone working at the store, behind the counter, or as a gunsmith, to make them better at giving advice for someone's first gun they're going to purchase?
Listen twice as much as you give advice. Assess your customer. What do they want to use the gun for? The budget, believe it or not, is third on the list. Okay. What is their need? What kind of configuration, what caliber and thing do they want? So they may want, okay, is it a handgun? Is it a shotgun? Is it a rifle? Okay. What am I going to use it for? What's the application? You wouldn't buy a station wagon, if all you're going to do is, you wouldn't buy a four-wheel drive if all you're going to do is go back down to the store and get groceries, right? You wouldn't. It's matching up to what their needs are, and that comes from asking questions, not giving advice. Ask the questions. Discern what is it that they're going to be using it for, and then go through. Then you're talking about features and benefits, which are two different things. So what do they want it for? Features, benefits. Now what's your price point? Because once they see the value in that this is going to be a great fit, all of a sudden they bump their price structure up, their limit up.
All right. Then what do you do if that customer is asking for the Ferrari of guns when they really need the family hauler of guns?
It's their money. And as long as you've done a good job of explaining the pros and the cons, if they want it as a status symbol so they can show their buddies and they want
Nothing wrong with that.
Sometimes that's what it's all about. Nothing wrong with that. Now you're starting to buy exclusivity, prestige, art, whatever the case may be.
Hey, buddy, this is America.
All right.
You can't tell me what gun I can or cannot buy, okay? If I want the top shelf, I'm getting top shelf.
That's exactly right. I'm here to assess your needs. You tell me your wants.
Yep.
If you want to spend that much, you won the lottery. Hey, let's ring it up.
Cool. All right, let's wrap this up. Short answer: if somebody today was gonna buy a first gun for their child, who's let's say a tween, what are you suggesting? Any type of firearm. Bart, what do you think?
Sure. If it's a parent that isn't gun savvy, make sure you educate yourself before you try to educate your kids. Once you're savvy about what calibers and different configurations, a single shot 22 is an awfully good place to start. That's what I would go with. If I had to pick a second best, it would probably be a single shot shotgun, a break open.
Steve?
I'll give a bit longer of an answer. So I'll give you a specific firearm, but if I had to make recommendations for a first-time purchase, if they're buying it, one, what's your budget? Look at reliability of the guns. Look at its purpose. Is it going to be like we discussed? Is it going to be for hunting? Is it going to be recreational? Is it ultimately going to be self-defense? So look at budget, reliability, and its purpose. And then last, I'd say look at the legal piece of owning that firearm, whether it's the legal part of buying that firearm for somebody else, whether they can own it, what happens if they are putting it in the back of their car and they get caught with it, are they going to get in trouble? So look at those pieces of it. But I'd say my favorites would be the shotgun. My first gun, I'm going to stick with that one. Go with like the Mossberg 500 or an 870 from Remington. What's your choice?
My deuce. So, all right. All right. So, thanks so much, Bart, for being on the podcast. This will not be the last time we have you on. You are a wealth of knowledge and a great conversationalist. So,
I don't have much up there, but whatever it is, you can have. And it was my honor. I really I enjoyed being around you guys, and you're easy to work with, and they're great questions, and I'm happy to contribute if I can. So,
And you did.
well, if you have a first gun suggestion or want to share your first gun stories, put them in the comments. But if you want to learn more about our firearms programs here at SDI, go to sdi.edu, click request information, talk to admissions reps, get your questions answered. Go through the website. There's a ton of information on there. But for Steve, I've been Christian. This has been the Gun Rack. Everybody wave bye. Huh? Wave bye, Steve. Wave bye.
You just can't see me. I'm waving bye.